Hello. We're going to learn some box and whisker plots today. All right, so before we do box and whisker plots, we got to remember measures of essential tendencies. Okay, so what these are things like this. So, oh man, my words are all messed up. Okay, so mean. Mean, if you ever hear the word mean, that means the average. That's like when you add up all the numbers and you divide by however many numbers there are, right? That's how you find an average. Range. Range is important to know. Range is that you just take your biggest number and your smallest number and you subtract them. All right. Mode is the number that occurs the most often, and median is the number in the middle. And that only works when you put your numbers in order. So you have to put your numbers in order from least to greatest, and then you find what number is in the middle. And that one's a super important one for box plots. All right. So box and whisker plots, they use the essential tendencies, and this is what it kind of looks like. You have a box, and then you have these things called whiskers. Hint the box and whiskers, right? So we're going to go ahead and learn how to read this and then how to make one. Okay, here's my box and whisker plot. All right, so here's some things that we need to know about it. The first one, what is the lower extreme? Well, if I look up here, it says lower extreme. And my lower extreme is on 15. The dot's right above 15 there. So my lower extreme is 15. And that represents the smallest number. That's where my graph ends. It stops right here on that dot and goes all the way over here to this dot, right? So 15 is our smallest number. That's our lower extreme. Lower quartile is the very first part of your box, the left side of your box. So I can see that it's going down to 19. So my lower quartile is 19. Sometimes you might hear this be called first quartile. First quartile or lower quartile. All right, the next is the median, and we kind of just talked about the median. The median is the middle number, so it's the middle of our box, and that's between 21 and 22, so I would say that's 21 and a half, and that represents our middle number. All right, and then the upper quartile is the right side of our box. The right side of our box, I see right here, it looks like it's at 25. So my upper quartile, or sometimes known as the third quartile, is 25. All right, and then the upper extreme is my biggest number, and that's over here. I just did in purple over here. That's what's my largest number, and that's at 29, and that represents the biggest number. Okay, so let's do some of this. All right, so it says range. Range is my upper extreme versus minus my lower extreme. So my upper extreme was 29, my lower extreme was 19. So I would just do 29 minus 19, and that would give me 10. And this represents the difference between the biggest and smallest numbers. We talked about that up top, right? All right, so that's range. Whenever you hear range, it's talking about the entire thing. If you ever see this thing called interquartile range, it's just talking about the range of your box. So if you look at these names here, this says lower quartile, this says upper quartile, right? So they're looking for the range of the box here between your lower and upper quartile. So to do that, we just subtract the same way, right? It's the upper quartile minus the lower quartile. So our upper quartile was 25, and our lower quartile was 19. So I would do 25 minus 19, and that would give me 6. All right, take a minute, pause the video, and just review this on your own, because these are a lot of new words and a lot of new things. All right, so let's make a box and whisker plot. Let's make a box plot, okay? So first thing we have to do, this is the set of data that they want us to make it with. First thing we have to do is make sure it's in order from least to greatest. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 11, 11, 12, 14, 20, 20. All right, it's in least to greatest order. We're good. All right, now I got to find the median. Remember, the median is our middle number. So the way I do this is I kind of check off a low number and then check off a high number. And I'm going to keep going until I get to the middle. 4 and 12, 5 and 11. Boom, I got one left right here in the middle. So my median is 11. And if you remember from the box plot above it, that is the middle of our box. It's a line. So I can make a line here at 11. And that is our median. That is our median. Okay? All right, so now what do I have to find? Well, I have to find my lower quartile and my upper quartile. So my lower quartile is just the middle number from the lower half of my data. So I look at my data here, and I'm just going to go do the same thing and find the middle. I got 1, 5, 2, 4. Whoop, 3 is in the middle of my lower half, right? So I'm going to put a line on 3. This is my lower quartile, LQ. All right, so now I got to find my upper quartile. So my upper quartile is the median or the middle of my second half of my data, my bigger numbers. So I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna go, all right, 11, 20, 12, 20. I'm left with 14 right here in the middle, right? That's 14. That is my upper quartile. That's the middle of my second half of data, my middle of my bigger data, bigger numbers. So I'm gonna put a line at 14. Okay, once I get my 3 lines, I can connect my lines and make my box. So there's the box part of my box and whisker. All right, so now what do I need to do? Well, I need to make my upper and lower extreme, right? So my lower extreme is my smallest number, that's 1. So I put a dot on 1, and then I just make a line connecting the dot to my box. And my upper extreme is 20, so I put a dot over 20, and then I make a line going from that to my box. And there is my box and whisker plot. Okay, so box and whisker plots, each part of the box and whisker has 25% of the data. And we know that because we found the middle, and we found the middle of the lower half and the middle of the upper half. So what that did was break all of our data up into 4 sections. You can see this is one section here, this is another section, this is another section, this is another section, right? So all of our data is 100%, and we found the half, which will give us 50%, right? This is the half, the median. I got 25 and 25 make 50, and 25 and 25 make 50. So half of our data would be 50%, right? And if I find half of that, that's how I get the 25s, right? And if I find half of this upper data, then that would be 25s, right? So now let's look at this and figure these out. So it says lower extreme. What is our lower extreme? This should say an L. I'm sorry, it doesn't. All right, so let's see. Our lower extreme's here, and we will go down. It's like right next to 55. So let's say it's like 54. All right. What's my lower quartile? Well, that's my left side of my box, and that is at 70. My median is the thing in the middle. It's the middle of our box, and that is at 80. My upper quartile is my right side of my box. Let's see if I draw my line down. And it's like between 85 and 90. Let's do like, I don't know, 88, 87, something like that would be it. It's hard to tell because there's not exact numbers on here. And then my upper extreme is my biggest number, and that's over here. And that is at 95. All right, so range. If I'm going to find the range of my box and whisker plot, I take my largest number, my 95, and I subtract it by my smallest number, which was 54. So what's 95 minus 54, you might ask? Well, luckily we can use Desmos, and I can do 95 minus 54, and that gives me 41. So the range of my data here is 41. So that's my entire range. So whenever it says range, it's talking about the entire thing. And remember when they say interquartile range, that's where you see these, right? Like remember this was lower quartile, this one was upper quartile, right? So the interquartile range is the range of your box. So the right side of my box, we said was 88, and I'm going to subtract it by the smallest side of my box, which is the left side of my box, and that's at 70. So it'll be 88 minus 70, which equals 18. All right, so what percent of data is above the median? Well, remember the median's right in the middle, right? That's the number that's directly in the middle. So that means half of our data is bigger than it and half of our data is smaller than it. So what is above the median? Well, that would be 50%. What about below the median? Below the median is the exact same thing. It'd be 50% because the median means it's in the middle. So half is above it, half is below it. All right, this says blank percent of students scored below an 88. All right, so here's our 88. It was right here. So what percent of students scored less than an 88? Well, I have 1 section, 2 section, 3 sections, right? So 3 sections of 25% each. 25 plus 25 plus 25 will get me 75. So 75% of the data is below an 88. All right, how many students scored above a 70? All right, so 70 is here, and I see that there's 1, 2, 3 sections above it. So that means 75% scored above a 70, right? Well, let's look up here. How many total students? Because that doesn't ask for percent. It asks for how many students. Well, there's 40 students, right? So if I broke that into 4 sections, that means each section has 10 students, right? So if I want to see how many scored above a 70, well, this section has 10, this section has 10, and this section has 10. 10 plus 10 is 20, plus 10 is 30. So it would be 30 students. All right, what about below a 70? Below a 70, we only have 1 section. right? So that would be 10. 10 students scored below a 70%. All right, so that is a box and whisker plot. Box and whisker plots, you have to find, the first, if you have to make your own, you have to put them in order, all your data numbers from least to greatest. Then you have to find your median, your middle number. And then you find the middle number of your lower half, that's called the lower quartile. And then you find the middle or the median of your upper half, which is your bigger numbers, and that's called the upper quartile. And then from there, you can make your box and whisker plot. Other things that are important to remember is each section in the box and whisker plot is 25% of all your data, okay? Other things you might need to remember, range is your biggest number minus your smallest number. And if you see interquartile range, it's the range of your box. So you take the biggest side of your box minus the smallest side of your box. All right, that's all time we have for today. If you need help, please ask a teacher, and I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.